Hey, what's happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. You are here for hot topics, and guys, you are in for an absolute treat. This is something that is going to help you and anyone that you love or care about. This is not something we typically talk about on the show, but when I met this gentleman, Hillel Presser, I was so impressed, and I said, I need to get you on the show. I want you to talk about what you do. Hillel is one of the top asset protection attorneys, I believe one in about five in the country that really have the ability that he does. So it's all about learning how to protect everything that you own from everyone, every time. Hillel, brother, thank you so much for being here. How you doing, man?
Doing great. My pleasure. And thanks for having me. Hopefully, I can live up to all those nice, kind words.
Well, there's no doubt about it, man, because what you do is so impactful. It's so important. I know it's not something that a lot of us typically think about, or at least, that was kind of my perception. I'm curious from your standpoint, what do you see in terms of, do people plan enough? Do they think enough? Do they even know what they should be protecting? And my answer is probably putting myself in their shoes, no, but I'm curious to see what you see on your end.
Yeah, unfortunately, the answer is most people, the majority of the population, don't know until it's too late. So somebody gets sued, somebody loses a case, and they start Googling, how do I protect my assets? But like anything, you have to be proactive. You can't buy the life insurance after the death, you can't buy the car insurance after the accident. You need to do any type of planning, properly and proactively. So, there's so many lawyers out there, especially in an economy like today. Rates are up, crypto's down, the market's down. It's so volatile, lawsuits are through the roof. So there's hundreds, if not thousands, of lawyers in every city trying to find a way to take your money. It's nice to be one of only a few in the whole country that teach you how to protect it. I like to tell people I am the lawyer that hates lawyers.
That must make you popular in your circles to be like, yeah, I don't like you, even though I'm an attorney as well. What led you to this side of the law to say, you know what, there is a great need. People don't plan enough. Again, I did come from that life insurance world where I know people didn't plan enough. But what led you down this path, Hillel, to say, you know what, there's got to be a better way for protecting people, all their hard work, all this, it can be gone so quickly. And I've experienced that myself. So what led you down that path?
Sure, it's interesting. My whole life, if you would have asked me when I was 10 years old what I was going to be, I would have told you hands down I was going to be a lawyer. And it probably had something to do with the fact that, 30, 40 years ago when I was growing up, at that point, I was very close with my uncle. And my uncle was one of the first personal injury attorneys to ever advertise on TV. So asking me growing up, I probably would have thought I would have been on the other side. Well, growing up and seeing people work so hard, retiring, whether it's a school teacher or whether it's a multimillionaire, is irrelevant. People work hard to live a better life. People work hard, to give their kids the things that we didn't have. People work hard, to donate to charity. But unfortunately, one lawsuit can wipe you out. So you can be retired, you're backing up from the driveway, and God forbid you hit a bicyclist, and everything's gone if it's not protected properly. So there's so many lawyers in every city trying to find any way to take money from you. How can I sue you? You've seen all the frivolous lawsuits. I wanted to be, on the other side and be one of the protectors and help people protect what they've worked so hard for. We have people who don't have much in the bank. We have clients that do billions of dollars every year with a B and everywhere in between. And it doesn't matter how rich or poor someone thinks they are, if they lose the little that they have, they're not going to be happy and nobody wants to start over.
Yeah, so let's start with some basics. Let's just talk about, I don't know, you said you cover from the I would call middle class or even, lower class to the elite, uber wealthy. How do you protect yourself? Maybe this is a big question, but maybe we can break it down to bite-sized, digestible pieces. What's the first step, Hillel, to say, you know what? I know I'm probably not protected. I haven't even had my assets looked at in, let's say it's a year or maybe 5 years or 10 years. I'm sure you see all of it. Where do I start, brother?
Sure. The first place to start is obviously with education. And we have tons of pages, hundreds, if not thousands of pages on our website. It's www.assetprotectionattorneys.com. We've authored several books on asset protection. So if any of the listeners want to go there, I'm happy to give them complimentary copies of our latest books. And before you do anything, educate yourself. Know that there's something that you can do. After that, there's so many different steps you can take. And I'll just give you a few. If you own a piece of real estate in your name, well, if you get sued, you can lose the real estate. And if somebody gets injured on the real estate, they can sue you for everything you own. Instead, why not put that piece of real estate in an LLC? Now, if you get sued, nobody can take the real estate. And now, if somebody gets injured on the property, they can't sue you, they can only sue the LLC. If you have liquid assets, I don't care if it's 500,000, 50,000, 50 million, or 5 million. If those liquid assets are in your name or the name of your revocable living trust, if someone sues you, you can lose every penny. Why not put those liquid assets in some sort of protective entity? And there's lots of different types of protective entities. Maybe it's a trust, maybe it's a limited partnership. Then if you get sued, nobody can take the liquid assets. So one really good strategy, and there's hundreds of strategies, but one really good strategy is retitling your assets to protective entities.
So it's interesting because again, I this is how little I know on it. I guess I'm that perfect layman, which is I have a revocable living trust. I'm thinking I'm doing the right things for my kiddos, avoiding probate, but yet I'm not thinking about this person necessarily walking on my property, something happens. So I would have never even thought an LLC for a home. An LLC is for a business, right, brother? So, these are these ideas that we hear, but yet there's obviously so many creative ways to do it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And,
go ahead.
and probably one of the biggest misconceptions, because I see it every day, is somebody walks into my office, they have a revocable living trust, like you mentioned, and they think they're protected. I see it every day I come to the office. You are 0% protected, 100% unprotected. People don't understand that estate planning, which is a revocable living trust, is for death. Estate planning deals with when you die, how do you get the assets where you want them to be quickly, privately, less taxes and less lawyer fees. It has nothing to do with life. If you get sued while you're alive, you lose everything in your revocable living trust. So asset protection deals with life. How do you protect what you have while you're alive? How do you take your chips off the table? And estate planning deals with death. Asset protection, life, estate planning, death. You need both of them.
Yeah, and it's man, I guess my question is how do we get, other than doing stuff like this, to get more education out there? Because as you said, I probably wouldn't even think of it because I don't think litigiously. It doesn't even come to my mind as someone can sue. But the truth is someone can sue for anything at any point at any time. As great as our justice system is, it's some of the flaws. I don't know if there's a question in that other than, I guess, how do we continue to get more education out there other than getting Hillel out there in front of cameras over and over and over again?
Yeah, so look, people sue for everything, and I've seen it all. You have the jet ski that runs over the snorkeler. You have the gentleman who sells his business and the buyer runs it to the ground and sues for fraud. I call it renegotiation. You have the people who are fighting over an estate when the parents die. You name it. I mean, the lawsuits are out there, and those are the quote unquote legitimate lawsuits, not the frivolous ones. So there's never short a lawsuit. And here's the thing. Anybody can sue anyone for free. I can go within a mile of me and find an attorney to take any case I want for free on a contingency fee basis. I can sue you today for $100 million for looking at me wrong, and it's intentional infliction of emotional distress, and I can't make a living anymore. Now, we know it's probably a BS frivolous case, but it'll cost me zero to sue you, and it'll cost you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or more to defend yourself. So you're forced to settle. It's a means of extortion. And it's unfortunate that there's not more asset protection attorneys. I don't want to be the only one. When you go to law school, there's a class on criminal law. That's why there's tons of criminal lawyers. When you go to law school, there's a class on estate planning. That's why there's tons of estate planning attorneys. There's no class on asset protection. Asset protection is a mix of estate planning, tax planning, business succession planning, contracts, et cetera, et cetera. So you really have to either be self-taught or had a mentor. I had both. I was very lucky.
Yeah, that was where I was going to ask is, okay, no class, my goodness. So you're writing the plan as you go. But to have a mentor, that is a great thing. So I want to get into basic, planning in this. So if I wanted to go see Hillel, you said educate yourself. So go get the books, which thank you. That's amazing. Guys, mention Let's Go Win podcast. You're going to get that from Hillel and his team. That's amazing. But what could they do to best prepare themselves if they were to come sit down with you? What should they be bringing to the table so that they can cover as much as humanly possible? Because the other thing, and maybe you can dispel this, but when I think of going to an attorney, it's almost like that taxi cab. Man, that clock is going, and it's like I'm trying to get in and out as fast as possible. Maybe that's not how you work, but I've certainly felt that way with other attorneys. You know what I mean?
I can imagine. We don't work like that. So before we start working with anyone, we'll always have a complimentary preliminary consultation. What are the client's goals? What are their objectives? Can we help them? And is there a good personality fit? If we can't help them, if it's not the right fit, it's not for us. But I don't ever want a client spending $1 unless we can help them and we're the right fit. After that, I never do any hourly work ever. So anything my firm does, we always do flat fee per project basis. And that way the client knows what is the cost, what is the investment, literally to the penny up front before they press go. That way there's no surprises, no unknowns, no miscommunications. So I like to try and take the unknown and the fear of that taxi cab mentality out of the client. But back to your question of what can they do? After they've educated themselves, the next best thing before they go speak to an asset protection attorney is inventory your wealth. Everybody has more than they think they do. So everybody thinks about if they have a business, if they have real estate, if they have money. I get it. But what about a domain name? What about a phone number? How would you feel if your domain name or phone number was pointing to the competitor? What about an inheritance? Does somebody owe you money? Intellectual property, patents, trademarks. So there's so many more things than just money and real estate and business. So after you educate yourself, the next best thing is inventory everything that you have. And we have an inventory sheet that I'm happy to send to any of your listeners where it breaks it down into probably 40 categories they would never even think of.
Yeah, one of the things I loved about the first time I met you and even now is you do simplify everything. So you're taking something that's pretty complex. I imagine some of these could be complex to make sure you're covering everything, and you make it so simple. My question to you is, what don't I know enough of to even know to ask you right now? What am I missing, Hillel, where you're like, JM, let's go ahead and make sure everyone hears this. John Becker put, I want a book. So John will make sure to get that over to you. But brother, what don't I know enough to even ask you right now?
Yeah, I think you've done a really good job of just, most importantly, knowing that there are things you can do proactively so that if you do get sued for any reason, you can be uncollectible and judgment proof. I think a great thing also is mentioning the trust. Everybody thinks they're protected with the trust, but they're not. And probably a third thing is really make sure your team is talking. So I had gentlemen in here yesterday, and they went to their CPA or tax advisor, and the CPA set them up great for taxes. Well, that's great, but what if they get sued? What happens when they die? So you need to have a 360 approach. So whenever I'm looking at a case, yes, people come to me for asset protection, but any trusted advisor can never just be thinking about their subspecialty. You need to be thinking about asset protection. How do you protect what you have while you're alive? Estate planning. How do you pass those assets on when you die? Tax planning. How do you legally and ethically pay less in taxes? business succession planning. How do you transition your business? Financial planning, accounting. It goes on and on. So you need to make sure that the team is talking and that you have a fully integrated plan. And look, at some point, you're going to have to make a decision. Hey, maybe I'll take the better taxes and not as good estate planning. Or maybe I'll take the better asset protection, but pay a little more in taxes. And there's no right or wrong answer. But you need to know that every single subsidiary affects the other, and you need to make an educated decision of what's best for you. And there's nothing that's cookie cutter. Everything is individualized, customized, and tailored. Everybody's assets are different. Everybody's threats and creditors are different. So no one size fits all.
Well, I know this much. Your team has a client coming their way. I have not read the books. I'm going to. Brother, I just thank you for educating us. I know there's so much more to it, but I appreciate you keeping us out of the weeds and really give the basic information so people can go protect themselves. And that was the whole point of this episode, is I want people to think about it, because I came from the financial service world and I never thought about these things. And you opened my eyes that day that I met you in Miami, and you're opening it even more today. So, brother, I just appreciate what you do. I cannot wait to work with you further. And how can people get in contact with you, whether they're in South Florida, or I don't know if you go nationwide? I'm not sure how your law firm works, but how could they get in touch with you, Hillel?
Sure. So we have a nationwide practice. So we have clients in almost every single state and different countries as well. We do both domestic and international work. And they can simply go to our website. It's www.assetprotectionattorneys.com. Tons and tons of educational information there. Again, if they'd like copies of our books, we have them in physical form or ebook or audio book. As long as they mention your show, I'll send it out to them complimentary. And anything I can do to help educate. I used to teach for fun. I would teach graduate and undergraduate business law. Again, I love to teach. I have a huge passion for asset protection. Again, kind of the quote I give everyone is, I say, for every 60 minutes you spend making money, stop and spend 60 seconds thinking about how to protect it.
It's not too much to ask, honestly. That ratio is pretty reasonable, I would say. Brother, thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy as can be. I'm so glad that you were able to share your knowledge, your wisdom, some of these basic practical things people can do. And all my listeners, I hope you get a chance to meet with Hillel and his team. I know I'm definitely, I heard my wife coming through the door. We are coming your way, brother. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Guys, there's a ton to protect. As Hillel said, you have far more than you even think, and you're probably not prepared properly. So take the time, take that 60 seconds he talked about for each 60 minutes. 60 seconds, that's only 1 minute. Think about what you're doing. Get with Hillel and his team. He's an amazing guy. I vouch for him 1,000%. And make sure you're protected. Remember, your mindset matters. Appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.